Board.
Yeah.
Are you there, Vivek? I don't see you.
Yeah, I am there, but I have switched off my video so I
How
can come
come?
on.
There it is.
Yeah. So as sir, you advocate for men's equality, I would like to ask you a few questions which are very pertinent one and asked by most of the MREs and general public out there. So the first thing I would like to say that most of the people say that men are more powerful physically, but then why men should not protect women? Which one is the weaker sex?
Just because you have a physical build that's more powerful than someone else does not equate to power and that someone else needs protection. The way men have been groomed from boyhood to serve women, it is men who need more protection, and mostly it's from women than vice versa. And as far as physical strength, that can be compensated for by weapons and even pitting other men against men, which they're trained and groomed to do from boyhood to serve women. So no, that the men have no more obligation to protect women than vice versa, but an equal right to protection to women.
Okay.
And the thing is, this is why this is kind of one of the premises that's behind men's equality. The need for men's equality is because women are privileged. They have more rights than men. The Violence Against Women Act is a perfect example of this discrimination. And the reason men actually need more protection than women now is that like our president, he's behind VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act. And that right there shows you how, no, men are not obligated to protect women. And they shouldn't be any more than anyone else. They should have an equal right to protection.
Sometimes people say that you are misandrist. Or you're not misandrist, you're misogynist.
Misogynist, yeah.
Yeah, because you come very clear and sometimes it look like it's anti-woman. So what's your take on that?
Well, the truth is anti-woman. Yeah, that's how it's coined. That's how it's presented, because men aren't to be heard. Anything pertaining to men or the truth and logic is anti-woman. And that is a tactic to prevent men from being heard and to continue men to be suppressed and to be persecuted. That's a cover that allows that to take place. And those kind of people, of course, are against men's rights and men's equality.
Do you think that you are not weakening the activism by saying this people doesn't want equality and this people want true equality? Everyone in a free country has a different belief system. So it's not there like you are dividing the movement.
Dividing the movement, there is no dividing. It's breaking down and extracting the truth. That's what we need. There's a basic truth, and it's clarifying the fight. Many do not have the substance, the real substance that it takes to really understand what underlies men's equality. And that's what I do, is clarify it. I'm an educator, and I've studied this and incorporated, experienced it throughout my life from the early 80s when I started writing my first book, Equality and Man's Claim. And it's all based on a premise of prejudice toward favoring women. And that's why I put a depiction of traditional misandry, chivalry, and placing women on a pedestal on the cover of my first book, Equality and Man's Claim.
So do you think that those who don't follow what you have written in this book, men's equality, are not a true MRA? They don't want men's good?
They many of them don't. I'm not saying all, but if they have problems with it, yes, I'm saying that basically because they don't understand the underlying concepts and the very substance it takes to be a genuine men's equality advocate or men's rights advocate. And I want to make a distinction.
Why you are not?
Just a minute. A distinction is necessary between being a men's rights advocate and a men's equality advocate. Equality applies to everything, and that includes status, to men's status, their value, and their personal existence and identity in equal regard to women, not just their rights. You can't have rights without equal value, or they're suspect. They're very vulnerable. They can be taken away, just like men's rights were taken away by Title IX, and just as they've been taken away by VAWA and other laws that are discriminatory. But if they're discriminatory, it's okay, just like blacks have been discriminated against. The same thing, the same principle is in place. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought that detail was necessary.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that what's your idea and what's your belief that everyone should come, every MRA should come on a consensus, on a common minimal ground or program, and they should fight for the thing which are common in them, because we are, you and I, the US and the India is a free country and we are democracies. So the dissent is a part of democracy. Okay.
A minimum, use that term again. You're talking about like general.
I'm talking about few people. They have a different view on chivalry. They have a different view on misandry. They have a different view somewhere or the other on circumcision.
Well,
So what we can do is that we have 70% of things in the similar. So why can't we go for that 70% of the thing which is similar, rather than
I
we're
think
focusing?
it's best to have the whole thing, the whole truth, and not an exception. You need the whole thing, or it's not genuine. If you veer from that, and you're accepting false premises, and it's like we accept our society as a patriarchy, but men are mere figureheads in a country in which they serve women. And that is not a patriarchy, that is a matriarchy with men as figureheads serving women. And their defined manhood is dependent upon that servitude. That is something that is an example of what I'm saying as far as not veering from the basic unilateral men's equality premise. You talk about different cultures thinking differently. Well, that's the case with our culture as far as our traditions, as far as chivalry goes. And that difference is no difference at all if you're going to compare us to other cultures, it's the same thing. Our culture is just as foreign to men's equality in that regard as any other country. So we have to stand by a basic premise of men's equality, period, as the standard, or else we're going to lose the whole. We're going to compromise and sacrifice the whole thing. It's like a small hole in a ship will eventually sink it.
See, you have told, which I agree with, okay, which most of the things I agree with, and but I would like to ask the question that few questions which brings us in our mind. Like you have said that all non-feminist women are not pro men's equality. So can you please elaborate? What do you mean by it?
Just because someone's anti-feminist does not mean they are pro-men. They are not for men's equality, because feminism is not the whole problem. Like I just mentioned, chivalry, traditional misandry is the core, the basic root of the problem. And because men are groomed from boyhood to serve women, that is why they didn't put too much of a fuss up comparatively. They should have, to accept feminism, because it was coming through serving women. And chivalry was of course, a big part of that. So that's why anti-feminists, many of them, are not pro men's equality.
And you said once that you don't believe in the waves of feminism. Then what's that? How do you turn what's feminism is?
Yeah, that's a new term that was just arbitrarily made up recently. It was what was it? Gosh, I don't think that term's been around more than 6 years or so, maybe. And there were no waves. Is this feminism, and feminism getting worse? I mean, that's silly. I think that's an attempt to somehow justify feminism as being around before like the 70s, when it commandeered what was, for a very short window of time, an effort to consider both men and women in the equality effort. But no, it didn't. That's ridiculous. And they're claiming they're claiming credit for what took place even back in the beginning of the century, and when women got the vote. That wasn't anything to do with feminism. In fact, those same women, and in fact, all the way through like World War II, those same women denounced feminism. They hated it. So that's a bunch of absolute bullshit.
One more article I was reading, and that said tea doesn't compare to sex. What do you want to tell in that article?
I'm sorry, what? Tea doesn't compare to sex?
Yeah.
Oh, that was quite a while ago, where maybe if you can elaborate on why it would, then I could answer the question.
Okay. I will ask that in the later bit then. But few questions are still there. Like you said, that men has been liquefied and fatherhood has been means father is
Fatherhood,
termed as
yes.
a monetary value.
They have been given a like a use value. Liquidated means that their assets have been taken away from them as a person, where women's assets, their sexuality, their sexual assets have not. in the past, before we had government currency money, men had an identity and value attached to them, to their bodies. They would do trade. They trade their work in exchange for another item they needed, like food, in trade for their services as a carpenter or some other use. But that was attached to them. What government did is got away with trade and made it so men could be separated as slaves to create money by their labor. And the case of child support is a very good example where men are not in contact with their children, but yet they have a money attachment to them. So they have to slave to provide that asset, and it isn't directly attached to them, so it goes to mothers. Where if it was directly attached to them, that value they had attached to them in the past would be transferred directly to the child through his love. And it's like, here's an example. When I was a child, I remember my grandfather giving me a tool, and it was like a hammer or a saw. And he said that this is something that you can use and it will work for you to get other assets. It's an asset that you learn. And it had a direct connection to the person. And it's I've written articles about this, as you know, but it's takes a little bit of thought and thinking, but it's really valid, because man's personal value has been sacrificed, forfeited, and that's been forfeited for women at the expense of children and, of course, men. Whereas women's sexuality, as the oldest profession attests, is comparable to men's assets. There was a trade-off. But since that human dynamic has been severed, then we have in that realm of our existence an extreme case of inequality as well.
Okay, but you have written an article saying that I like sluts, and
Sluts?
you,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's a blunt kind of a
you
different way,
support prostitution, right?
a way of saying something that is a little bit a derogative term of women, but it's complimenting them because, yeah, okay, I mean, you haven't asked me the question totally, but I know where you're going with that, about why do I like sluts? Is that what you're getting to?
Yeah, going to that way only. Why you prefer sluts? Those who do such a dirty job,
Okay.
selling
Yeah,
their
that's a
bodies.
derogatory term, but I'm putting it out there because I don't think it's derogatory. It should be a derogatory term. I like women that express their sexuality without any covenances and any restrictions, and they don't use it to manipulate men. They consider themselves equals if they're sluts. Men aren't sluts, they're studs. The only difference is the way it's set up now is that men have to work harder to get sex, and women don't. They actually can get it to meet their evil desires to manipulate men. So if we had more sluts, then good. Men and women could be more equal. And that's why I like sluts.
Now coming to a different point, you said men have become the disposable second-class citizen. What do you mean by that? Because wherever I see and wherever I read, physically they are stronger, and it looks like they have the more power. They are the more privileged sex. And on the other hand, you say that they are the underprivileged one, the second class disposable sex.
Yes, it's like I said earlier. Now, we don't want this video to be too long. Do we want to make another video, or are we okay for a minute?
No, wait for a second. I will have to ask something. Okay.
Okay,
And
I'll
a
answer your question.
few things
Okay,
I would like to ask. So uh,
we can edit it, I guess, but uh, men, okay, your question is, again, kind of based upon what you said earlier about men having power, which I deny they do, because
okay.
men are groomed from boyhood to serve women. And elaborate a little bit on your question, if you would.
Okay. No, no, no. Wait for a second. I was just asking you that you said women have the power. Then why women are being raped? If they have the power, then why it's happening?
Wait a minute now. You're talking about physical power in the sex act? Is that where you're?
Yeah, yeah. You said that women control men in a way or other.
Yes.
That woman is on the pedestal. Then why it happens that women are still getting raped?
Why do we still have murder? I mean, same question. Why do we still have crimes? Uh, Women are not getting raped like they claim to. That's why we have so many false allegations of sexual abuse and rape. In fact, rape laws had to be changed. I believe it was in the late, or no, actually the early 90s. There was a common claim. This came out amongst men's equality advocates. Feminists were upset because there was so less rape that they had to change rape laws to requalify what even defines rape, which is ridiculous. We can't do that with murder or any other crime. And
I will ask.
rape is all to a woman's discretion. It's to her discretion. And the rape laws were changed in a terrible way as to even make exceptions to our Constitution in defending the so-called rapist. He was already considered a rapist when he was still not proven guilty, and due process was taken away. The other laws, like rape shield laws, totally unconstitutional, were imposed, and this I think answers your question. Is there any follow up to it that you'd want to ask me?
No. I like to ask just two more questions.
Okay.
What do you think a father should have reproductive rights? What type of reproductive rights you support? Are you
Same as women.
indoors
I mean,
for
that
us?
child is a result of a man and a woman, right? So a man
Yeah,
shouldn't have any less rights in determining that child's life and care than a woman does.
but it's her body. She's conceiving the child in her body, so man can't decide what
No, a
should be
man
done
should be
to.
able to decide, because during that temporary period, it's an equal interest. And his body is involved just as much. I mean, that's self-evident in the fact that he is required to pay child support later. Isn't that his body that has to work to pay child support by her choice? The way it is now, that isn't equality. That isn't right. It's as much his body involved as it is hers.
So, how do you think that man and woman can be equal? Because, as you said, that uh, they can do each other's job, but they can't do each other's job well. So, how to maintain a balance between both the sexes, and how to maintain and how to reach towards men's equality, and how should we proceed to that? Because women think that what rights men are having is the power, and what you said, that what women are having, they think that that's the power.
We have, like I think I mentioned before, a matriarchy with men as figureheads to serve women in our country. Manhood is defined by servitude to women, where boys are groomed from very young to be gentlemen and to be servants to women. And that goes all the way into how our government runs and the benefits and privileges women have over men, like those examples I mentioned earlier. And women have more than men do as far as
A one minute
privileges.
comment, a 1 minute comment on these few topics. Divorce. How do you see men's equality coming into force in the case of divorce? What do you want?
Divorce.
Yeah.
Well, if we have equality, it will be equal. If the woman has a job, a career, and she's making more than the man, then she should pay him child support or alimony. Or I have a problem with alimony because after you're separated from a person, that person should not be responsible for you in any way. And so that's probably, I mean, if it's going to apply to one sex, it needs to apply to the other. But as far as child custody and child support, there shouldn't be that. Actually, if it's joint custody, should work the same way. There is some, I mean, you have to look at it to be equitable, but if you're going to have a child, and that child, of course, has a right to both parents, and both parents have a right to that child and to share their love with that child. And under the premise of equality and not attaching money to the equation, I don't believe that is child support, as far as money, should enter into it. And if money does, then the government's going to be involved. Government currency, right? That relates, just a minute. That relates to what I said earlier, as far as the father providing for the child directly through his person, providing food, providing a house, just like the mother would do, not entering money owed outside of his relationship with that child to anyone else.
Yeah.
Was there any other part of that you wanted me to address?
Yeah, a few points, because
Okay.
I would like to complete this the whole thing.
Yeah, we're getting a
Like
little
domestic
lengthy.
violence
Okay.
is another case. So uh as I said earlier, and I was telling in the beginning, that men is a more powerful thing, powerful person, powerful sex. So what do you think?
I don't believe that. It's not true.
Okay.
We've proven that to be true with all the biases and laws against men that men themselves have imposed upon men, even making those laws unconstitutional against men. What kind of power is that, Vivek?
Yeah. Okay. Then education you have talked about. Then equal pay for equal work, false accusations, rape victims, that is male. We have talked about father's right. We have talked about circumcision. We have talked about gender bias laws, men's health, positive masculinity, and things like that. But yeah,
Okay,
mm,
circumcision. I mean, we have problems with female circumcision, but yet we still advocate for having a male circumcision, which is ridiculous. And the arguments on that are that it's not the same, that we're removing skin, extra skin from the penis that's not needed. And it's
but is
claimed
that good for the health? That's good
the
for the
health
boy's health.
is determined by hygiene. And it's like I heard a very good analogy not long ago that the elbow, okay, it comes from expansion of the penis. It's allowed to take up that expansion, just like the elbow, okay? When it's not stretched, it looks like this. Stretched, it's plump. I mean, it's ridiculous. What it is it's based in religion. And by the way, religion adds a lot to traditional misandry, and it's used by feminism now in many ways to attack men and men's sexuality and their penis as is a representation of evil when it comes to sexuality. So the way that the circumcision originated was an excuse to punish men and to take away that sex drive. And excuses in the medical profession even is that it's better hygiene to take off the skin. It's all ridiculous. And it's funny how it's allowed towards men, but not women. And that shows, again, the bias placing men at a lower status than women and allowing circumcision, that very primitive practice, to continue here in our country, a so-called advanced country.
Okay, okay. So we have talked a lot about these features and your beliefs, but I would like to ask you that how you think that we can achieve men's equality.
How we can what? I didn't.
How we can achieve men's equality.
How we can achieve it is by education, creating awareness, tapping into people's psyche, their brains, to really, I guess you'd say, undermine all the propaganda, these prejudiced narratives put forth by feminism and by chivalrous and traditional thinking even. But that's how we do it, is creating awareness as a foundation first, and understanding. We need to understand what's happening and how we've accepted this very extreme misandry and lack of human kindness and equal consideration. It's like being raised in the South, where we had extreme prejudices amongst many people in those cultures against blacks. And it's like Germans with Jews. It's very effective, and you get so you're extremely calloused as a part of how you're raised and groomed from a child. You're indoctrinated with this garbage.
No, you have talked about the black. So what is incel? You say incel is the new N word.
Oh, I've said that before, not just now. Okay.
Yeah.
Incel is like putting someone down for having, who is the actual victim of feminist circumstance. And by the way, for those who don't know, incel means involuntarily celibate. Well, that comes from being subjected to the prejudices that we have, especially nowadays, and of misandry, of hating males, and the deprivation of males receiving sexual fulfillment. And it's very important. It's part of development, as part of their personal self-worth and self-identity, that males are accepted and that they have this fulfillment in their lives. We'll find, like amongst feminists, and how they belittle men for their very problems that they've created. And also they have and portray punishments for men if they outlie in their preferences and their thinking beyond feminism and outside of feminism. So they're either misogynists because they have a stand representing themselves and their rights and their needs, or they're misogynists for disagreeing and conveying the truth. So they're so suppressed that we need to be able to have more avenues for men to be heard, for any kind of awareness and expression to take place, for men's equality to exist. And this is applicable to being an incel. And
Okay.
as well as
Thanks. Yeah.
derogatory terms.
Yeah. So we are just going to conclude this, because you have told us many things about men's equality.
I've studied this. I've lived it for many decades, and I've incorporated into my graduate and doctoral studies, and much research on my own and experiences heading groups. You know that, but others probably don't. And I went through the court system as far as custody too, and the custody battle, and that was hell. In fact,
You're a victim.
I've shared that experience as well with other men who I encountered, especially heading the group Men and Fathers for Justice. And we worked with other fathers groups, including Fathers for Justice.
So what I think is that I will come up with more questions next time we do the discussions.
Okay,
so till then,
I guess you can chop this up so it's a long one. And people with a short attention span of nowadays, they are hesitant to watch anything this long. So
so you can stop the recording from your side.
Okay, let's sum it up then, and stop it now. Okay. Alan Millard, good day.